"Get out, you poor high school dropout. You're totally out of place here." In an exclusive, members-only luxury inn, this utterly misplaced shout echoed through the halls. The voice belonged to a beautiful but ill-tempered woman, a former classmate who had been disliked since middle school. She had shown up uninvited and immediately started hurling insults at me as soon as she spotted me. Even when one of the organizers tried to intervene, she complained, saying it was a complete failure on their part to forget to invite her, souring the mood of the gathering. Apparently, she found out about this place through the social media posts of our classmates, despite not having received an invitation herself. She was obsessively checking the social media of just another former classmate, with whom she wasn't particularly close. Several classmates who posted the information looked remorseful. They never imagined that a classmate they didn't even follow and weren't close with would go out of their way to check their posts. Moreover, none of the classmates who posted had specified which reunion it was for. Was it for the elementary school reunion? Or the middle school reunion? Or perhaps the high school reunion? Yet, she tracked down the classmates who posted and determined that all of them were from our middle school days. She boasted about it, but the other classmates present were quite taken aback. Her level of obsession was honestly frightening. The reason Emily wasn't invited to the reunion is simply because she's disliked. However, she seems to still believe that she's popular, just like in middle school, and complained to the organizer that the reunion couldn't start without her, the star of the class. When the organizer apologized for not inviting her, she snorted in triumph. Then, noticing I was still there, she started to harass me again. Her loud and bothersome yelling was extremely annoying. The commotion was a nuisance to the inn and was obviously making the other classmates uncomfortable. I asked if I should really leave. She said that it was indeed a nuisance that I was there, so I decided to leave. The classmates tried to stop me, but I told them not to worry about me and opened the door to leave. As I left, I heard her say loudly, as if for me to hear, that she was relieved. Little did she know what a terrible experience awaited her the next morning. I'm Jack, 34 years old. In a few months, I'll turn 35. I live with my grandmother and parents, a family of 4. The place I was just ousted from was a private section of a high-end, traditional inn, accessible only by referral. This inn was rented out for our reunion, which was essentially a gathering of middle school classmates. We've always called any such gatherings, whether they were class or age group reunions, simply reunions. And the person who treated me like a pauper and drove me out of the reunion venue was my middle school classmate, Emily. Ever since middle school, Emily had always flaunted her status as a president's daughter, lording it over everyone, and was disliked by her classmates. The company her father owned wasn't large enough to warrant such behavior, which all of us classmates knew. Sure, she was technically a president's daughter, but that didn't justify looking down on others. Emily always acted superior to everyone, but she especially looked down on me, calling me poor. Probably because I wasn't the type to show my emotions much, which Emily didn't find amusing. Even when Emily hurled insults at me, I just ignored them and didn't respond or break down crying like some other classmates. I was frustrated, but I didn't show it. I felt it was pointless to talk back. I think I have an idea why Emily assumed I was poor. It was probably because I was living with my mother at the time, so she might have thought we were a single-parent family. In Emily's mind, a single-parent family equaled poverty, and that's why she believed I was poor. It seemed pointless to argue with someone like Emily, who held such prejudiced beliefs. While I was living just with my mother at that time, we weren't a single-parent family. It might seem like a single-parent situation since my father wasn't living with us, but we were financially supported by him. My father, a Japanese American, is an international lawyer with legal qualifications in both Japan and California. He worked at a large law firm with offices around the world, specifically in their California office. However, when I was in the 4th grade of elementary school, he was transferred to Japan. At that time, my mother and I considered moving to Japan with him, but there was a reason we didn't. My mother's parents. In other words, my grandparents hadn't accepted my father even after 10 years of marriage. To convince them, my mother and I decided to stay in California. My grandparents, while not accepting my father, were always affectionate towards me. It seems my mother didn't want to take away the loving grandparents I had. So, my mother and I stayed in California, but my father would visit us for a long vacation once or twice a year. The opposition from my grandparents was apparently because my mother married immediately after graduating from university. Although my father was 6 years older than her and had more life experience, my mother had just started her career. To my grandparents, it might have seemed like my father had charmed their daughter. But, as I heard from my father, it was more my mother who had passionately pursued him. Also, my grandparents couldn't quite accept that he is not purely American, even though he was fluent in English and of American descent. They could understand it in their minds but hadn't reconciled it emotionally. Thus, my mother and I regularly visited my grandparents and helped with the family business while trying to persuade them. While helping with their business, I began to think that I wanted to do the same kind of work as my grandparents someday. I expressed this desire during the summer of my 3rd year in middle school. "Can I take over here someday?" My words surprised my grandparents and my mother. I admired my father and had said in my younger years that I wanted to be a lawyer like him, so their surprise was understandable. It's normal for childhood dreams to change, but my mother and grandparents probably thought I still aspired to be a lawyer. This revelation changed everything. Apparently, my grandparents had been worried about not having an heir since my mother married my father, and I was planning to become a lawyer. My mother had not definitively said she wouldn't take over, and if she had, my father would have quit his job as a lawyer to work with her. It was clear to me, even as his son, how much my father adored my mother. His expressions of love were so abundant that even I felt embarrassed watching them. Of course, he also showered me with plenty of love. Maybe my reluctance to express my emotions was due to my father's overly straightforward expressions of affection. When I expressed interest in taking over my grandparents' business, my father started talking about quitting his job and moving back to America in the future. I thought it was a waste since he had achieved his dream of becoming a lawyer. But he didn't want to live apart from me and my mother. As my mother and I worried about this, my grandfather said, "Jack can take over when he's an adult," and suggested that I live with my father in Japan. My grandmother also supported this, saying it was strange for the family to live apart for so long. Effectively, they had accepted my father. So, it was decided that I would move to Japan as soon as I graduated from middle school. After that, it was a whirlwind of activity. From obtaining a visa to preparing for the move and selecting schools, and so on. There was so much to do. Eventually, I went to high school and college in Japan and returned to America at 22 to start preparing to take over my grandparents' business. When it was decided that I would return to America, my father said he would quit his job and come back with me, but my mother wanted to stay in Japan and persuaded him to stay. My mother probably didn't seriously want to stay in Japan, but she might have insisted on it to prevent my father from quitting his dream job. Thus, I began living with my grandparents to prepare for taking over the family business. Usually gentle, my grandparents were strict when it came to work. If I slacked off even a little, they would scold me mercilessly. Some time passed under their strict guidance as a successor, when suddenly my grandfather fell sick. He was already 74 years old. Despite still working, His body must have reached its limits. My grandmother, being 71 years old, decided to retire as well. Employees who had been with my grandparents longer than I and had helped out since their childhood recognized me as the successor and agreed that I should take over. There were still some uncertainties, but I decided to move forward with guidance from my grandparents. While preserving the aspects my grandparents cherished, I also planned to incorporate the ideas of the younger employees. 5 years have passed since I took over, and it was time to start new initiatives. Thanks to these, I was leading a very busy life. Occasionally, my parents would visit from Japan and help out. Now, my grandparents and my father have a good relationship. My grandparents now exchange hugs with him as a matter of course. A year into the planning for these new initiatives, just as we were about to start implementing them, I received a call from Michael, a close friend and middle school classmate. Knowing I was busy, Michael's call must have been about something significant. When I arrived at the meeting place, I was surprised to find not only Michael, but also our former classmate, Sarah. I had assumed Michael would be alone, but after hearing their story, I understood why they came together. "We've decided to get married," they announced. Michael and Sarah were my classmates in middle school. However, they hadn't been dating since then. As far as I remembered, they went to different high schools and universities. It turned out that Michael, having overworked himself and fallen ill, was hospitalized, where Sarah, inspired by her beloved grandmother's illness to become a nurse, was working. Everyone knew Sarah had aspired to be a nurse since middle school, following her grandmother's passing. I remembered Sarah had gone to a high school with a nursing program. Many boys, attracted to her calm and kind nature, had admired her. Michael had become a lawyer. Michael and I had been childhood friends. Our houses were close to each other, so I also knew about his father, who is a lawyer. When I was dreaming of becoming a lawyer like my father, Michael too expressed the same aspiration. Though I chose a different path, Michael had realized his dream of becoming a lawyer. His strong sense of justice made him a natural fit for the role, often being the peacemaker in our class. Their marriage news was significant. Sarah, the class's Madonna, and Michael, known for his strong sense of justice. I was curious about the reaction of our classmates. They planned to announce their marriage in the class group chat, but Michael wanted to tell me face to face. I was touched by Michael's sentiment, feeling a mix of happiness and embarrassment. Despite receiving overt expressions of love from my family, it felt different coming from a close friend. Wanting to reciprocate Michael's feelings, I suggested, "Why don't we organize a reunion?" The marriage of Michael and Sarah, who were central figures in our class, was quite a significant event. Part of me wanted to see how our classmates would react, but I also felt that announcing their marriage in a group chat seemed somewhat lackluster. However, Michael and Sarah looked conflicted at my suggestion. I remembered that the invitation for the 15-year reunion, held every 5 years, hadn't reached me 5 years ago. As I asked what happened, Michael and Sarah exchanged glances before explaining. My moving to Japan after middle school graduation was only known to close classmates. Of course, Emily wouldn't know. Apparently, Emily made wild assumptions when she found out someone else was living in my old house and there was no sign of me attending a nearby high school. She had been spreading false rumors among our classmates, claiming that I had run away in the night due to poverty or that I was working at a construction site because I couldn't afford high school. Of course, my friends who knew I had moved to Japan corrected Emily's fabrications, and now, nobody believes her lies. However, due to these lies, Emily became even more disliked and ended up being excluded from a group chat created without her. Currently, the group chat with Emily in it is hardly functioning. Despite the fact that Emily was a classmate, the truth is that for both the 5th and 10th year reunions, She was sent invitations but never responded. However, she showed up unannounced on the day of both reunions, saying nonsensically, "It's dull without me, right?" and didn't even pay the participation fee. This led to discussions about discontinuing the reunions if it meant having to invite Emily. I couldn't attend the 5th-year reunion because I was in Japan, and I missed the 10th-year one as I was too busy learning the ropes at work. Since then, only close friends have been gathering, almost like small reunions. Michael and Sarah were worried about hosting a reunion, concerned that Emily's attendance would spoil the atmosphere. While I could easily ignore Emily's provocations, the thought of her ruining the reunion's mood was something even I wanted to avoid. So, I suggested this. I suggested that we should ask everyone in the class group chat created without Emily. I had anticipated that the consensus would be not to invite her, given the existence of an Emily free chat group, but I never expected the opinion in favor of inviting her to be zero. I was surprised that not even one person, not even Michael or Sarah, thought it might be better to invite her despite disliking her. There was even a significant number of voices saying they wouldn't attend if Emily was there. Apparently, Emily had been looking down on and verbally abusing her classmates in high school and college too. The chat was soon filled with complaints from classmates who had been her victims. To change the topic, Michael posted a comment, volunteering himself and Sarah as organizers. Thanks to that, the conversation shifted from bad-mouthing Emily to planning the reunion. Typical of justice-driven Michael. After all, watching a chat filled with insults isn't exactly pleasant. On the day of the reunion, one by one, former classmates began to gather at the venue. This time, the reunion was held in a rented private section of an exclusive, members-only luxury inn, where entry is not possible without an invitation. Seeing everyone impressed with the venue filled me with joy. As the start time approached, Michael and Sarah took the microphone for the opening address. But then, with a flushed face, Michael announced, "We're getting married." The room went silent for a moment. But soon, congratulations started flying from all around, and the venue was enveloped in a festive atmosphere. Michael and Sarah were quickly surrounded by a crowd, bombarded with questions. Watching them shyly answer, I was moved to tears. Though I'm not good at showing emotions, tears of happiness seem to flow naturally. Maybe with age, I've become more like my father, who is generous with his emotions. I imagine my father would be openly weeping and expressing his joy at such a moment, which brought a smile to my face. Thinking back to our middle school days brought a wave of nostalgia. Despite Emily, our class was famously close-knit. Some of us were even asked by seniors in our club activities how we managed to become so close. Additionally, there were those who were told by friends from other classes that our closeness was almost weirdly strong. Our homeroom teacher had once expressed concern that our close relationships might distract us from studying for exams. Even after 20 years, it seems our bond hasn't changed. The venue, initially buzzing with Michael and Sarah's surprise marriage announcement, settled down as everyone began to share their recent updates. Suddenly, there was a commotion near the corridor connecting the main building to the annex. I could see an employee trying to stop someone. Not just me, standing near the entrance, but most of the attendees started to notice as the voices grew louder. Then, from the entrance where all eyes were now focused, Emily made her appearance. As all eyes turned towards the entrance, Emily appeared, bursting through the sliding doors and yelling, "How dare you not invite me?" Her misplaced shouts echoed through the exclusive, members-only luxury inn. Despite being over 30, Emily still being selfish, which made me sigh in disbelief. Noticing me near the entrance, she turned and shouted, "The high school dropout and poor person should just leave. You're out of place here." Emily had always been beautiful, but now her unpleasant personality was evident on her face. I know I shouldn't judge people by their appearances, but having been bothered by her since the old days, Please forgive me for thinking this way. Uninvited, yet here she was, hurling abuse. I told her, this isn't a reunion, it's an open house. This gathering was officially an open house. That's why the sign at the inn's entrance also said open house. After deciding not to invite her in the group chat, I proposed this idea to Michael and Sarah, who were concerned about not inviting one person due to their strong sense of justice and kindness. A grand open house for the newly built annex, with old friends happening to be the invitees. This provided a pretext that it was just a coincidence that the invitees were old friends. Hearing my suggestion, Michael and Sarah, who probably didn't want to deal with her anyway, quickly agreed. Startled at first, Emily then began to rant, realizing that the gathered attendees were all classmates, making it obvious that this was a reunion. As the commotion grew, Sarah stepped forward and Emily accused her. "You're disqualified as an organizer for forgetting to invite me." Emily began berating Sarah, proudly explaining how she discovered this reunion. It seems she had scoured the social media of former classmates with whom she had no interaction to get this information. Classmates who had posted about the reunion looked apologetic, probably never imagining Emily would go to such lengths to check their accounts. The classmates who had posted about the reunion had all refrained from specifying which one it was. Was it the elementary school reunion? Or the middle school one? Maybe the high school reunion? Nevertheless, Emily meticulously searched through her former classmates' posts, determining that they were all from her middle school days. Her obsession to go to such lengths was truly frightening. I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Murmurs of fear were audible among the attendees. She then claimed her job as an influencer made her adept at gathering information. However, her SNS followers, barely reaching 100, were a known fact in the earlier group chat. She was, in essence, a self-proclaimed influencer. Unaware of her unpopularity, she insisted, "The party doesn't start without popular me," and confronted Sarah. As Sarah apologized, Emily smirked triumphantly. Noticing me, she began to hassle me again. Her loud ranting was nothing short of a nuisance. With the potential disturbance to the inn and the discomfort of the classmates, I had had enough. "If you're going to say that, should I just leave?" I asked her. She insisted it was more of a nuisance having me around. "All right then, I'll leave the rest to you." As I announced my intention to leave the venue, my classmates tried to stop me. Observing this, Emily burst out laughing and said, "Isn't it ridiculous to hold back a dropout to a guy like him?" I assured my classmates, asking them to enjoy themselves, and stepped outside. Emily's voice, claiming relief at my departure, followed me out. Knowing the trouble she would face the next day, I couldn't help but find it ironic. The next morning, Emily's loud voice echoed in the inn's lobby. After each attendee had settled their bills, Emily, who was the last to pay, saw the bill and exclaimed in shock, "What's with this amount?" Confronted with a bill of $25,000, she was in shock. Being just a self-claimed influencer, it was a sum she couldn't afford. Accusing the inn of extortion and fraud, Sarah approached her. "You promised to take responsibility yesterday, didn't you? I learned about what happened after I left from Michael last night, after the reunion ended." Even after I had gone, Emily continued making belittling comments about our classmates. Once she found out Michael was a lawyer, she suddenly started acting overly familiar with him. Emily claims to be an unemployed influencer. Michael subtly indicated his preference for people who are self-reliant, but Emily seemed to think he was talking about her and got carried away by herself. Thinking she wouldn't understand unless he spelled it out, Michael was about to speak up when Sarah declared that he was her fiancé. However, Emily insulted Sarah, calling her plain and unattractive, and then, despite having been all over Michael just moments before, she suddenly claimed she had no interest in him. Even I, who heard about it later, was speechless. Whether it was pride or something else, I couldn't understand how someone could be so brazen after aggressively flirting with someone and then dismiss them. I'm sure the classmates who remained at the scene were just as shocked, their mouths agape. After a while, due to Emily's behavior, the reunion had to be wrapped up. Emily was still insisting it was too early to end, but no one agreed with her. Seeing Emily persistently trying to convince the guys to keep drinking, Michael finally resigned and informed the staff that it was over. Sarah, somewhat reluctantly, told Emily, who was about to leave the venue, "You'll have to take responsibility for driving Jack away." She said it with a smile. Michael, telling me this, looked a bit scared, as if foreseeing a future where he'd be completely under Sarah's thumb. I couldn't help but laugh a bit. Confused by Sarah's remark, Emily started causing a scene, demanding the manager at the front desk take responsibility. When I showed up, knowing this would happen, Emily looked visibly disgusted and said, "Still here, you poor thing. Just disappear." So when I said, "Didn't you call me here?" she was dumbfounded. In reality, I inherited this traditional inn from my grandparents and am currently running it. The annex used for the reunion was built as part of a new initiative planned since last year. In this era, just being a traditional inn isn't enough to attract customers. Hence, we plan to make the annex, which is available even to walk-ins. We're considering renting it out for weddings and corporate retreats in the future. I had planned for the reunion participants to fill out surveys as monitors, so I could consider future plans based on their feedback. I wanted to provide an appropriate venue for Michael's marriage announcement, being a close friend. However, I knew Michael would have hesitated if he knew the real reason. That's why I invited everyone under the guise of a viewing party. Emily, who refused to believe a poor dropout could run a luxury inn, was adamant even after I explained everything. So Michael chimed in, "It might be odd for me to speak about someone else's family, but I think Jack's family is probably richer than Emily's." He explained that this was my mother's family's inn and my father was an international lawyer. Emily stopped calling me poor, but she made excuses, saying she didn't agree to any payment. However, I had clearly explained to her last night that it was a viewing party. She was the one who assumed it was a reunion just because her classmates were there. Still, Emily insisted the amount was exorbitant. I had no choice but to meticulously explain the breakdown of the amount. The viewing party participants, as monitors, had a fee of $200. There was a condition that participants had to fill out a survey. Part of the purpose was for me, the proprietor, to observe the participants' genuine reactions. But since I was driven out by Emily, I couldn't see their reactions. So I decided to charge Emily the difference for 25 participants. Since the annex's room rates weren't decided yet, I used the main building's rate of $1,200 per person, minus the $200 fee, totaling $1,000 per person for 25 people. Emily, who claimed she couldn't pay such an amount, was getting what she deserved. Michael told her she was lucky not to be charged for the damages she caused to the viewing party. There was a condition that participants had to fill out a survey. However, Emily proposed an amount of just $100 per month for the installment plan. That's an unreasonable amount. It was a ridiculous proposal, taking years to pay off $25,000. At that moment, someone I had called arrived. Seeing this person, Emily's face turned pale and she froze. I had called Emily's father first thing in the morning, anticipating her inability to pay. Emily's father runs a towel rental company. He had frequently visited this inn for business, so I knew his contact information. We handle our laundry and sanitation in-house and had no intention of using a rental service, so I had declined his offers. Thinking he was being offered a contract, Emily's father came eagerly but was made to apologize with his daughter after I explained the situation. He asked for forgiveness with only the apology, citing his business's poor financial condition. Like father, like daughter, I thought, almost admiringly, in a way. Forgiving them now would just lead to more of Emily's rampages. Even in such a situation, she had the nerve to say, "I'll marry you," showing no signs of remorse. When I mentioned calling our legal advisor, Emily burst into tears. Upon seeing this, Michael advised Emily's father, who was sitting there in shock, to quickly take the crying Emily out of the front area to avoid any disturbance to the inn's operation. Then, Emily's father hastily grabbed her arm and led her outside. Emily's father's towel rental company wasn't well regarded in the hotel industry. It was notorious for delivering towels with mold or unremoved stains. Because of such sloppy service, I heard that the company was losing contracts rapidly. I also heard that Emily's father tried to make absurd requests like asking for contracts in exchange for marrying off his beautiful daughter. Emily, silent, was indeed beautiful. There were rumors about someone who, charmed by her photos, agreed to a blind date, only to be completely turned off by her personality. Emily, learning that her father's company was facing bankruptcy, must have forced her way into the reunion, seeking a new source to leech off. Unfortunately for her, none of her classmates, who knew her personality, were interested in dating her. Afterwards, Michael handled the task of informing Emily and her father's company about the financial responsibilities for this incident. Michael has been serving as a legal advisor for the inn for the past 2 years. 2 years ago, my parents returned to America. At that time, Michael, who had always admired my father, decided to leave his office job and study under my father's guidance. My father, intending to retire upon returning to America, was persuaded by Michael's passion and decided to open his own law firm. While my father is the representative, Michael handles most of the operations. It's decided that Michael will take over the firm, with my father supporting him until he's ready to lead on his own. Nowadays, my father spends most of his time at the inn, so it won't be long before Michael becomes the head. As for Emily's payment, which she couldn't afford, my parents ended up covering it. However, the commotion she caused at the inn's front desk became known, leading to the bankruptcy of her father's company. Fed up with her husband's doting on their willful daughter, Emily's mother left the family. Emily and her father moved to a small apartment where they are living by working multiple jobs. As for me, I continue to work hard at the inn. My grandfather passed away last year, but I live happily with my parents and grandmother. The opening of the new annex, which I've been planning since last year, is finally set. The first guests will be Michael and Sarah. Michael and Sarah decided to use the annex wedding plan at our inn. We agreed to offer it at a discounted rate in exchange for using their wedding for future advertising. Even without the advertising deal, I would have been happy to provide it at a discount, but knowing Michael and Sarah, they would insist on paying the regular rate. Since Michael knows the regular rates as our legal advisor, I couldn't deceive him. So, we agreed on them modeling for us. Watching their happy moments makes me want to get married too, but I don't have anyone in mind. What about Emily? No way. That's one thing that's absolutely out of the question. Are you serious? I initially screamed into the phone when I received a call from my mom. How on earth did it come to a discussion about marrying my sister-in-law? I thought. I had no idea why my mother would suggest marrying my sister-in-law. But as my mother continued talking, I eventually found myself listening intently. My name is Brandon, and I'm 31 years old. Suddenly, I am in a state of confusion. This is because when I answered the phone, thinking it was just a routine check-in from my mom, she suddenly said this. Brandon, how are you? Listen, this is sudden, but would you marry Emily? What? What are you talking about all of a sudden? That's not a normal sentence to say after "How are you?" Why would you say something like "Why don't you marry Emily?" I was so surprised that I shouted out loud. I even thought something might be wrong with my mom. My mom, unbothered by my agitation, started talking. "Well, you see, Emily seems to be having a tough time raising her child alone. Linda from the neighborhood said she went to help her daughter, who just had a baby. That's where she saw Emily." I was curious about what Linda, who has been helping me since I was a kid, had witnessed. Linda has always been a nosy lady, unable to ignore anyone in the neighborhood who's in trouble. Emily currently lives about 3 hours away from our house. Because she's busy with work and raising her child, we only get to meet during long holidays like Thanksgiving. This year too, during Thanksgiving, I had a blast playing with my 5-year-old niece Sophie. But the fact that Linda made a point to tell my mom about it made me wonder what state Emily was in. What happened to Emily? That's the thing. According to Linda, Emily was sitting on a bench at the park, letting Sophie play, and didn't even move when Sophie called her mom. She seemed really tired. I see. Emily is always smiling, but that must be exhausting. She's doing everything alone. Holding my cell phone to my ear, I was thinking about Emily. I met Emily, who is my sister-in-law, when I was still a college student. The first time we met was when I was introduced to her by my brother in my senior year, at the age of 22. I have a brother who is 5 years older than me. His name is Michael. Our relationship as brothers was neither good nor bad, I suppose. The age difference played a part, and Michael and I had different personalities. I was a typical baseball kid, involved in Little League and immersed in baseball from morning till night. On the other hand, Michael didn't hate sports, but he preferred reading books or crafting, so we didn't play together much as brothers. Michael was smart and good at studying, so when I became a middle school student, he often helped me with my studies. Brandon, do you have any study guides for the entrance exams? If not, want to use mine? Bro, I don't think I'll understand even if I look at the study guides. Can you teach me? As I prioritized club activities until the last minute during my high school entrance exams, I wasn't confident in the written tests. I figured it would be better to be taught by Michael, who was smart, rather than going to a cram school at that point. After discussing it with my parents, I begged Michael for help. Seriously, first, try solving the problems I give you. Although I solved the problems Michael gave me, the results were not good. Seeing my answers, Michael, who seemed to have switched on, became an incredibly enthusiastic tutor. We studied hard together, and I somehow managed to pass the entrance exam to my desired high school. Michael, already a college student by then, was incredibly happy for me. That's great, Brandon. You worked hard. I was embarrassed but happy at the smiling and ruffled-haired Michael, which was a very memorable image for me. From then on, I think I started talking more with Michael. Michael, always a step ahead, was my role model. He was a bit stubborn, but I like my kind brother. When I was in my sophomore year of college, Michael was 25. I think it was around that time when Michael introduced me to Emily. Brandon, I want to introduce you to someone. Yes, the voice of Michael on the phone sounded embarrassingly bashful, as if he was struggling to hold back a grin. Really? Bro, a girlfriend? That's awesome. I want to meet her. I immediately jumped at Michael's news. She's my girlfriend. Well, she is now. I mean, I want to marry her. That's what I'm thinking. Michael, at 25, had a calm and intellectual aura that honestly made him popular with women. He seemed unaware of his own appeal, though. So, I was excited to meet the woman Michael had chosen, especially since he was considering marriage. Getting married, that's huge. I can't wait to meet her. When are you introducing us? I plan to come home for New Year's. Will you be at the house, Brandon? Yeah, I'll be there. My part-time job is on break. I'm looking forward to it. Got it. I'll call you again when I have more details. After hanging up, I told my parents, and it seemed each of them had already heard. They were as excited as I was. In anticipation of New Year's, we eagerly cleaned the house and did some serious shopping. Then, finally, the day came when Michael would bring his girlfriend. We were all restless after Michael called to say they were almost here. When the doorbell rang, we even argued over who should answer it. Eventually, I decided to do it and opened the front door. Brandon, long time no see. Are Mom and Dad doing well? They're good. Oh, and you must be his girlfriend. Nice to meet you. Standing nervously behind Michael was Emily, his future wife. When I spoke to her, Emily stepped forward from behind Michael and replied politely. Nice to meet you. I'm Emily. I'm in a relationship with Michael. Sorry for intruding on your New Year's family gathering. Thank you so much for letting me come. I couldn't help but have a good impression of Emily, who greeted us politely despite her nervousness. She was petite with fair skin and big eyes. There was something about her that was adorably kitten-like. I thought she was genuinely cute. And it seemed my parents thought the same. Oh my, she's so cute. Dad, isn't she just adorable? Emily, the woman set to become your mother-in-law, seems to have really taken a liking to you. I thought to myself that the typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues probably wouldn't exist in our house. Watching my parents, these thoughts crossed my mind. Indeed, she's a lovely young lady. Let's not stand in the entrance. Please, come in. Dad was smiling like I'd never seen before. He had once said, raising two boys was a lot of fun, but I've always wanted to raise a girl too. He had let that slip while slightly tipsy. I'm looking forward to you and Michael finding wives, he had said. At the time, I had just broken up with a girlfriend, so I could only respond with a wry smile. Yeah, let's go in. And Emily, please, I know it's hard not to be nervous, but I think, if I may say so myself, that you'll find everyone in our family quite nice. He looked at Emily with a kind face, as if to reassure her. Michael is generally a kind person, but I thought this particular expression was reserved just for Emily. She really caught a great guy. Then, we all introduced ourselves, a bit nervously, and enjoyed a meal together. Mom was incredibly enthusiastic, preparing lots of Michael's favorite dishes. We had a great time looking at photo albums and spending time together. That time is still a precious memory for me. Thanks for today. It was fun. And thanks for meeting Emily. Emily is such a great person. Take good care of her, bro. Yeah. Count on me. Michael declared this proudly, and Emily smiled shyly but looked very happy. My parents and I saw off the two of them, and a happy day came to an end. Afterwards, their relationship progressed smoothly, and a year later, they happily held their wedding ceremony. Brandon, I'm so happy to become family with you. Me too. Can I call you sis from now on? Of course, you can. I'm fine with bro too. It'd be weird if Brandon suddenly started calling me big brother now, right? Probably, I'll still call you bro even when we're old and gray. That's fine by me. Hey, let's drink together, even when we're old. I did a fist bump with Michael, watching the ceremony to the end. The sight of them pledging their eternal love in the chapel was so moving, I cried a little. To be honest, not just a little, I cried a lot. After the wedding, Michael and Emily lived happily, and we all got along well as an extended family. 3 years into their marriage, Michael called to say they had something to tell us and asked if they could come over. At the time, I was at work and only heard about it when I got home. But when I found out Michael and Emily were coming, I noticed something was off with my usually cheerful mom. What's wrong, Mom? You seem more gloomy than usual. Something happened. Mom is usually optimistic and laughs a lot, but she was different that time. Mom seemed a bit troubled when I asked her. Do I? Well, I'm a bit worried. Michael sounded so lifeless on the phone. It was just different from usual. All I could do was vaguely nod at her words. I couldn't imagine a downcast Michael. He's always been so calm, but being calm is different from lacking energy. Thinking we would understand better once we met, I tried to encourage Mom. Maybe he's just tired from work. We'll know when we see them. That seemed to settle her a bit. That's true. No point worrying now. They're coming this Saturday, so let's make some delicious food to cheer them up. Mom started cleaning the house as usual, and I felt relieved. I was looking forward to seeing Michael again on Saturday. Then, on that day, about 20 minutes after Michael texted that they were almost home, they arrived at the front door. Our smiles froze when we saw them. Michael had lost a noticeable amount of weight. He was always slim, and we thought he'd never need to diet. Bro, hey, long time no see. Surprised, huh? I lost some weight. Michael was smiling, but his smile seemed tired. Shall we go in? You must be tired, Michael. Emily gently nudged him with a worried look. Snapping out of it, my parents invited them to sit in the living room. We all sat at the dining table in silence until Mom served tea. After taking a slow sip of tea, Michael started talking. Sorry for the shock, I lost a lot of weight. Losing weight really drains your energy. What happened? Heat stroke? Mom asked, furrowing her brows with concern. No, not heat stroke. Cancer, terminal. They said I have a year left. Michael spoke about something incredible as if it were nothing at all. He said it with the same casualness as if asking, "What's for dinner today?" or remarking, "The weather is really nice today, isn't it?" Naturally, my parents and I froze. I don't know how long we were frozen, but we came to our senses when Emily sniffled. I moistened my dry mouth with tea and started speaking. Probably Dad or Mom should have asked, but they were still in shock. I had to be strong and start the conversation, as I knew we all probably had the same questions in mind. Terminal. Is it really, I mean, incurable? Not even surgery or chemotherapy? Michael responded calmly to my question. Yes, there's nothing that can be done. I even sought second opinions, hoping to extend my life, but after visiting 4 hospitals, they all said the same thing. I'm just tired of it all. Emily was silently crying next to him. Right, they had just built a house and were excited about their careers. They just built a house, and you were so happy about the big project at work. Why does it have to be you, bro? My voice trembled as I spoke. I had to exert effort to hide my shaking. I clenched my teeth, desperately holding back tears. It's harder for Michael. They had just gotten married, acquired their own home, and everything was going well at work. It was a life full of happiness. Yet suddenly, Michael's future was given a finite deadline. That was the hardest part. Is there anything we can do? Anything we can help with? Mom said this through her tears. But even while crying, she looked steadily into Michael's eyes. There's a lot, but the most immediate request is about Emily. Michael looked at Emily with his usual gentle smile. Emily tried to smile back at him, but tears kept streaming down her face. Emily's pregnant. Hearing that, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. A strange sound came from deep in my throat, a stark realization that I was crying. Tears wouldn't stop flowing. Mom also started crying loudly. I buried my face in my sleeve like a child. Will you make it? Will you get to see your child, even just for a moment? Dad asked for all of us. Yeah, I plan to see the child. I want to, at all costs. I hope to be there for at least the first 3 months after the birth. As we wiped our tears, I saw Michael smiling. Emily was smiling next to him too. I couldn't stop wondering how much they had talked and cried about this before telling us. The thought made me cry again. It's going to be tough after the baby is born, right? I plan to go to fatherhood classes and share the parenting, since Emily has no parents. Could we ask for help after the birth? Don't worry, leave it to us. We'll be there for you. Emily, will you rely on me? Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Mom. I appreciate it. Sorry, Dad, Mom. I haven't been a good son. And the order of things is all wrong, isn't it? Sorry, Brandon. I guess I won't be able to drink with you when we're old. Michael apologized, referencing our conversation from the wedding, and I managed to smile through my tears. I'll drink on your behalf, bro. Do that for me. But don't overdo it, okay? He reached across the table and ruffled my hair. His hand was Michael's, but the wrist peeking out of the sleeve was thin. This conversation wasn't a lie or a dream. It was real. Michael really had a limited time left. The reality was so sad and frustrating that I cried again. I wanted to rebel, saying I wasn't a child to be comforted. But maybe this could be the last time he'd comfort me. Maybe there's still time, but maybe. Can I enjoy being comforted for a bit longer, bro? I'll ruffle your hair as much as you want until it's time. Michael said happily, continuing to ruffle my hair. My parents and I were visibly affected, and I could hear my parents sniffing louder, but I didn't mind. I think Michael probably didn't either. After being consoled by Michael for as long as I needed, he and Emily left. Now, our entire family was worried about them driving home. I might have lost a bit of strength and get tired more easily, but I want to live as normally as possible for now. Don't worry, I'll make sure he's careful. We repeatedly asked her to take good care of Michael and saw them off. As soon as they left, Mom collapsed in tears. Why? Why does it have to be him? Why does he have to go through this? She cried like I had never seen before, wailing loudly. It's true. Why? I'd take his place if I could, especially now that they're expecting a child. Even Dad, who had seemed calm, knelt beside Mom and cried. It's true. He was just trying to stay composed, but Dad surely wanted to cry and wail too. He's always been a family-oriented and doting father. Seeing my parents in tears, I knelt down and hugged them. The parents who once seemed so big and protective, now felt so small as I became an adult. Let's do everything we can. Let's support Michael and Emily in every way we can. I don't know how or what we can do, but let's give it our all. My tearful words made my parents nod in agreement. We decided on 3 things during our family meeting. Not to impose our opinions on Michael and Emily. To support whatever they want to do. To offer financial assistance within a non-burdensome range. We were careful about giving them space but stayed involved in their lives. When Emily had severe morning sickness, Mom stayed overnight with her, and Dad or I accompanied her to the hospital when needed. As time went on, Emily's pregnancy progressed to 6 months. Michael found strength in talking to Emily's belly and supporting their growing child. But then, the day came suddenly. One late night, our house phone rang. All of us jumped up, startled, and I took care of Mom, who was frozen in shock, while Dad answered the phone. Hello, Emily. Yeah. Dad's tense voice made Mom and me feel an ominous premonition. Mom clutched the sleeve of my sweatshirt. I held her shoulder tightly. Understood. We'll be there right away. Hang in there, Emily. We're coming. Dad repeatedly assured Emily, and I realized that the time had come sooner than expected. Is bro not doing well? He suddenly became unwell and lost consciousness. They've asked for family to come, Dad explained. Why now? He was so close to meeting his child. Mom cried, unable to hold back her emotions. I felt incredibly frustrated. Encouraging my devastated parents, I spoke up. Let's say our goodbyes properly. Let's get dressed quickly. Dad, should I drive? It might be safer. I tried to speak calmly. That seemed to motivate my parents to get moving. Would you mind? Thank you. No worries. Let's hurry. We then drove through the night on the highway to the hospital. It took about 3 hours using the highway. I kept wishing the hospital was closer. Michael and Emily trusted the hospital's doctors greatly, so we had kept our promise from the beginning not to interfere with their hospital choice. Upon arriving at the hospital, we passed through the night reception and were led to Michael's room. It was a simple private room, where my thin brother lay on the bed. He looked as if he could stop breathing at any moment. Emily was by the bed, crying and holding Michael's hand. Look, everyone's here. Your father, mother, and Brandon. Michael. Oh, why has this happened? Michael, you did well. You were so brave. Despite all the hardships. My parents spoke to him one after another, while I stood frozen, unable to take a step. I had so much I wanted to say to Michael, but saying goodbye felt like accepting the inevitable, and I couldn't find the courage. It was Emily who gently pulled my hand. Brandon, please say your goodbyes to Michael. Though she was crying, her grip was strong. Yes, Emily was the one who was suffering more. She had to raise the child in her belly alone now. I couldn't afford to be scared. I nodded, let Emily lead me to Michael's bed, and took my brother's thin hand. Dad gently made room for me, and I took Michael's hand, now so thin. Bro, you've worked so hard. It was a bit sudden at the end, but I'll never forget you. Don't worry about Emily and the baby. We'll take good care of them. So, it's okay. It's okay. I intended to grip it firmly, wondering if this would reassure Michael. I squeezed his hand tightly and wiped away my tears. I wiped my tears and Emily spoke to him. Thank you for all the happiness. Our time together might have been shorter than others, but I was happy. I'll be happy from now on too. I'll make sure our child is happy. Thank you. We all cried uncontrollably. It seemed like Michael waited for everyone's farewells before quietly passing away. After that, I cried so much, I honestly don't remember how I spent my time. When I came to my senses, everything was over, and a small altar for Michael was set up in our house. Every day, we gathered as a family, prayed at the altar, and talked about Michael. Emily, not much longer now. We're so excited. Yeah, but are you okay, Emily? Going back to the house Michael built, all alone. It's worrying, but it's what Emily wants. Indeed, Emily had refused our suggestion to stay with us until after the birth and recovery. I want to be in the house Michael built for us. For now, that's what I need. With tears in her eyes, Emily said to us, and we couldn't insist. We just asked her to contact us if anything happened and kept an appropriate distance. Then, as my parents and I were discussing that it was almost time, we received a message from Emily. She was going into labor and on her way to the hospital, asking my mother to come. Mom quickly got ready. Dad, get the car ready, she said, grabbing the bag she had prepared. Let's go. Brandon, can you stay home? Sure, I'm not a kid. I'll be fine. Seeing Mom bustling about, I felt relieved. She had been quite down. After my parents left, I prayed at Michael's altar. Bro, Emily's doing great. Please cheer for her. Later, around 10 a.m. the next day, I got a call from Mom. She's born. A beautiful baby girl. Emily is tired but okay. I felt a deep sense of relief. Tears of joy rolled down my cheeks. That's great. Really great. Yay, that's great. I couldn't say anything else, and after hanging up, I prayed again at Michael's altar. Bro, you and Emily did great. That's wonderful. Somehow, even Michael's photo seemed pleased. I met my niece Sophie about 2 weeks after her discharge from the hospital. Mom had told me that a woman's body post-childbirth is like having been in a car accident, which really scared me. "Thank you, Brandon." Emily said this apologetically, propping herself up in bed with the baby in her arms. "I'm single and clueless, but I heard that a woman's body after childbirth really needs to be cared for, so please, really lean on Mom and take it easy. Thank you. Your mom has been taking care of everything. That's natural. You're our beloved daughter now, and you gave us a grandchild. Thank you, Brandon. This is Sophie." Michael had named her. Emily offered for me to hold her, but I refused with all my might. Too scary. I couldn't bear the thought of something happening to this delicate being because of me. What would I say to my brother then? No, 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 that's too much for me. What if something happens? My panic made the women laugh, but Dad understood my fear. "I get it, Brandon. I was the same when Michael was born." I agreed with Dad and asked to take a photo with my phone instead. "Let me hold her when she's a bit stronger. Can I take a picture?" "Of course. Take as many as you like." She was so adorable up close, and I took countless photos. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. Somehow, she seemed to resemble Michael, and tears welled up in my eyes. "Maybe she does look a bit like bro, doesn't she?" I wiped away my forced tears and began my first meeting with Sophie, discussing how she resembles Michael and Emily. While driving to see Emily, I reminisced about all that had happened. Sophie was now a thriving 5-year-old. Emily had been raising her alone while working, and she looked well when she last visited. If something was wrong, I figured it would be better to show up unannounced rather than calling ahead, so this time, I decided not to inform Emily beforehand about my visit to her house. Normally, it would be rude, which is why I usually wouldn't do it. While thinking about this, I arrived at the house Michael built, where Emily and Sophie now live alone. I pressed the intercom button. I heard Sophie's footsteps running inside. "Just a minute, Sophie. Don't open the door on your own. Uncle Brandon." Ignoring Emily's words, Sophie flung the door open. "Brandon, what brings you here?" Emily looked tired. "Hey Emily, it's been a while. I'm here to take Sophie for a little while." My sudden offer surprised her. "What? Take her? What do you mean? Emily, you're pushing yourself too hard. How much are you sleeping? Eating properly?" When I decided to have this conversation, I made sure it wouldn't sound like I was blaming Emily. Knowing Emily, who struggles to ask for help and always tries to handle everything on her own, it was crucial. If she felt criticized, she would only continue to push herself even harder alone. "Can you let her kindergarten know she'll be off for 3 days? 3 days. I know you have to work, so I'll take Sophie. I got tickets to that theme park and hotel she's been wanting to visit. We'll be away for 2 nights. So can you let them know she'll be off for 3 days? I showed Sophie the tickets with her favorite characters on them. "Sophie, how about going to this park with Uncle Brandon?" Recognizing the theme park, Sophie was overjoyed. "Sophie, let's go. With Uncle Brandon. Mom's going to stay home, okay? She needs a break too." It might be hard for my 5-year-old niece to understand, but I explained that her mother also needed rest. Sophie looked curiously at my face and then at Emily before smiling brightly. "Okay, Mom, I want to wear my pink pants. I want to go now." Urged by Sophie, Emily snapped back to reality. "Pink pants, got it. Emily, can we talk a bit while you're getting her things ready?" "Sure." We 3 prepared Sophie's things together. Sophie went to choose a stuffed animal to bring along, leaving me a moment to talk to Emily. I told her about how Linda saw her looking exhausted, how we worried she was secretly very tired despite always smiling around us, and how Mom suggested I should marry her. Emily was shocked. "What? Your mom said that?" Her reaction was just as I expected. I had been equally baffled at first. I was surprised too. We both laughed. "Sure, I was keeping it together for Sophie. I always think I have to be strong and keep going. Tears started to flow from Emily's eyes. I imagined that since Michael passed away, Emily might never have confided her struggles to anyone. I handed her my handkerchief. At that moment, I felt a strong desire to support Emily. Perhaps making Mom's suggestion a reality wasn't such a bad idea. Of course, Emily and Sophie's feelings mattered. I actually think it's a good idea. We know each other's personalities, right? There might be parts we haven't shown each other. But it's better than starting from zero. Emily looked up in surprise at my words. Her eyes still had tears in them, but above all, her face was flushed red, which was endearing. Are you teasing me? This is a big deal for me and Sophie. I'm not teasing. I understand it's important. You're tired now and probably can't think straight. Rest first. Oh, and this is from Mom. Saying that, I handed her an envelope filled with cash. I was asked to give this to you, with a message to use it for your own rest. Thank you. Your Mom. Emily cried a bit more, but looked somewhat relieved. You look relieved. I'm glad you could cry. Think about what I said, okay? I never thought of you that way, Brandon, since you've always been just my brother-in-law. But now I remember something Michael said. What did bro say? He said you were kind and compassionate, and if anything happened, I should rely on you, that I could trust you with me and the baby. I laughed because it sounded so bossy. It seemed like a random comment at the time, but now it suddenly makes sense. I laughed, hearing Michael's premonition. Indeed, it was somewhat presumptuous, but Michael would never entrust what he cherished to someone he didn't trust. At the very least, he trusted me enough to believe I could take care of his wife and child. I laughed to hide the sting in my nose. Bro, you were amazing. So insightful. When Emily laughed, Sophie came back, carrying an impossible amount of stuffed animals in her arms and looking extremely pleased with herself. Sophie's adorable expression made both Emily and me laugh. After convincing Sophie to bring just one toy, she and I set off for 2 nights of fun. Sophie was well behaved, managing bathroom trips and changing clothes on her own. Having bathed with her at my parents' house, I knew there'd be no issues there. What struck me was her limitless energy. How could a child have so much stamina? By the second night, I fully realized the challenges of parenting. At the same time, I deeply respected Emily for doing it all alone. All right, let's head back to Mom's place. Yay! After thoroughly enjoying ourselves for 2 nights and 3 days, we returned home to where Emily was waiting. Since I had told her we'd be arriving soon, Emily was waiting for us in front of the house. Mommy, Sophie waved excitedly from the car window. After parking and opening the door to get her out, she ran straight into Emily's arms. Chattering away, she told her mom all about our adventures. Emily, smiling and listening, seemed a bit more energized. Once inside, Sophie plopped down on my lap, making a chair out of my arms. Ah, so cute. I found myself smiling naturally. As I recounted our activities over the past couple of days, Sophie started to get sleepy and a bit fussy. When Emily suggested it was bedtime, Sophie refused to be held by her. I want to sleep with Uncle Brandon. Not Mommy, Uncle Brandon. Hold me. I picked up the grumpy Sophie and asked Emily to prepare a bed. All right, let's sleep. Uncle Brandon will sleep too. I lay down next to her on the bed. Sophie, apparently very tired, talked for a bit but soon fell asleep. I watched her peaceful sleeping face, thinking how adorable she was, and eventually, I must have fallen asleep too. I was awakened by Sophie patting my face. Wake up! Seeing me jump up, both Sophie and Emily burst into laughter. What? Seriously? I fell asleep. You looked so comfortable sleeping next to Sophie that we didn't want to wake you. I can't believe it. Even though I thought I was fine, keeping up with a 5-year-old's boundless energy for 2 days straight was apparently quite exhausting. "Hey, Uncle Brandon, aren't you staying here?" Sophie suddenly started a conversation. "Huh? What does she mean by staying here?" Like me, Emily seemed confused too. "What do you mean? I want Uncle Brandon to always be at our house. I want to go out and play again, eat meals together, and nap. I wish Uncle Brandon could be my daddy." "Sophie, your daddy is." I stayed silent, watching carefully. Emily seemed unsure of how to respond. As Emily was deep in thought, Sophie said to her. Pointing at Michael's photo, Sophie said, "It's okay to have 2 daddies." At those words, Emily started crying, and I couldn't help but cry too. Seeing us adults suddenly tear up, Sophie looked bewildered. "Mommy, does it hurt somewhere?" "No, honey. I'm fine. I'm just surprised by how thoughtful you are. Yes, having 2 daddies is okay." "Wow, really? You're truly Michael and Emily's child." I wiped my tears, feeling genuinely moved. Children are incredibly pure. They leap over the complications adults get caught up in without a second thought. "So, Uncle Brandon, I want you to be my daddy." Feeling the weight of Sophie hunting me, I silently vowed to make her and Emily happy, in Michael's stead. Of course, that includes both Sophie and Emily. "I want Uncle Brandon to be my daddy. Should we ask Mom? If Michael were here, he'd surely laugh and say everything will work out just fine." "Thank you, Brandon. How about we start by dating? With the understanding that you'll be a dad." Those words made me incredibly happy. "Thank you, I'm looking forward to it." "Yay, let's hug." Mom and Uncle Brandon, hug. Sophie pulled me over to Emily for a hug. All 3 of us were smiling. Sophie kept saying hug over and over, giggling happily, while Emily smiled shyly. I vowed to myself and to Michael to always protect these smiles. My name is Tom, a 28-year-old male. I work at a small factory, so my salary isn't great. I only take home about $1,500 a month, making life quite challenging. That's why I always felt sorry for my wife, Sarah. Sarah and I met through an acquaintance and started dating. Sarah was the same age as me, 26 at the time, but she seemed to have no interest in brand name items. All the women I knew were crazy about branded stuff. I may sound strange saying this, but I was fairly popular with the ladies. So, I ended up casually dating women who confessed to me, but they all clamored for branded goods. On the second date, they would start asking for things like a Gucci bag or Louboutin shoes. Such items, costing tens of thousands of dollars, were way beyond what I could afford on my salary. So, when I refused, these women quickly drifted away. In the end, I realized that to all these women, I was nothing more than an ATM. But Sarah was different. Sarah always dressed simply but not shabbily, and I thought she had great taste. Since we got married, I've grown to love her more and more. Her unpretentious personality and her constant smile have been so comforting to me. Despite the inconvenience due to my modest earnings, my wife never complains. She works as a temp and almost entirely saves the money she earns. "Sarah, why don't you buy some cosmetics you like? The toner on the bathroom counter is almost gone." But I was thinking of waiting for a sale. The easy peasy super sale starts next week. I think it'll last until then. "Really? I'm not sure if it will. There was barely any left. I'll buy it for you, so don't hesitate." "Sarah, you always hold back too much on buying what you want." "But I don't really dress up much. It feels wrong to buy things just for myself, you know. You haven't been buying much for yourself either." "I'm honestly fine." "Are you sure, Sarah? I don't want you to hold back because I always feel like I'm causing you trouble." "That's not the case at all. I'm not holding back or anything." "Okay, if that's what you say, Sarah, As long as you're happy. Even though she said that, I couldn't help but think that Sarah was just being considerate and not buying anything because of me. I felt guilty for causing her inconvenience because of my low salary. She might want to buy her favorite clothes and cosmetics as much as she likes. I know her friends are all fashionable. Sarah never says she's envious, but I can't help but wonder if she really feels that way. Since it had been a year since we got married, I thought of it as an anniversary gift and reserved a fancy steak restaurant. The restaurant has a great reputation, so I thought Sarah would be happy. I've never eaten at such an upscale place, so I was anxious about making a mistake with the etiquette. Well, as long as we enjoy the meal, that's what matters. As long as we don't dress inappropriately or eat messily and disturb others, I just want to enjoy the meal. Then, Sarah and I went to the fancy steak restaurant. The chef saw us and greeted us warmly. The interior of the restaurant was also impressive, and I got really nervous. I wondered if it was really okay for us to eat at such a nice place. Sarah seemed a little tense too. She wore a chic black dress and carried a gray handbag. But neither the dress or the bag were high-end brands. They were bought at a regular, affordable clothing store. Sarah seemed to really like the dress and bag and took good care of them, so they were still in great condition. Nobody would know they were inexpensive unless told, and Sarah's good sense of style made her look somewhat sophisticated. We ordered steak and appetizer. I heard it's good to start with something light, so we ordered salad and soup. The salad was fresh and very delicious. This salad is delicious. I've never had such tasty dressing before. Yes, I agree. It's got beets. Really delicious. This soup is also good. Yes, very tasty. Soup I ordered was potato pottage. Sarah's soup was corn pottage. I'm usually satisfied with canned chicken soup, but high-end soup was a whole new level of delicious. I heard that the quality of the soup is a sign of a good restaurant, and it was sweet but not overly so, and very tasty. Afterward, we had main meal, steak. It was really tender and juicy. The sauce was just right. It was my first time having steak so tender and rich in flavor. This steak is really delicious. It's so tender, it feels like it's melting in my mouth. Yes, it is. I really like it. It's the best steak I've ever had in my life. Yes, thank you for today. It was really delicious. While we were eating the steak, David, a manager from one of our client companies, showed up. I thought, the last person I went to see, and momentarily stopped using my fork. That's because David always looks down on me, and I don't like him either. David works for Company A large corporation that frequently advertises. He seems to earn a good salary, working there. Moreover, David apparently graduated from a very prestigious national university and looked down on me for only graduating high school. I attended a technical high school because I wanted to acquire a trade skill and got many qualifications while I was there. But according to David, being a graduate of a technical high school is seen as being at the bottom of the hierarchy. I worked hard in my own way and had my reasons for choosing that high school. So, I really can't like people like David who boast about their education and background and look down on others. No, I guess it's more accurate to say I quite dislike him. We had this conversation before. Today, I came to observe, B Company really is a tiny business, isn't it? It's nothing like our company. What's with this shabby equipment? You guys must be short on money, huh? Yeah, well, that's true. We are a small company, and replacing equipment isn't really feasible right now. You're Tom, right? Why are you working in a place like this? Couldn't get into a better company. I was recommended this company by my high school teacher. Plus, even though it's small, Our products have one of the highest market shares in the country, so I felt it was a good choice. High school. So you joined this company right after high school? No way. Wait a minute. High school graduate and already working. That's like being a loser in life. Why do you think that? I don't believe that's true. Because you didn't study hard enough to get into university, right? Stuck as a high school graduate. So, which high school did you go to? It must be a bottom tier one. Well, I went to C Technical High School. That's C Technical High School. The one where you get in just by writing your name. You really went to such a low-tier high school. And not going to university. Your life is basically over. A high school that even a kindergartner could get into. It's embarrassing to even be alive. There's no need to say that. I worked hard too. Worked hard. That's something a college graduate can say. Not you, a high school graduate from a technical school. You didn't work hard. That's why you're just a high school graduate. You don't get it. David said this and walked away. It felt like he just came to be a nuisance. He was really annoying. After such an incident, I really hated David. I mean, who could possibly like such a person? While we were eating steak, David was smirking. Then he sat next to us and suddenly started saying mean things. Wow, Tom, you frequent places like this as well. I thought you wouldn't have the chance. How many months of your salary did you spend here? Maybe 2 or 3 months worth. No, I just came here for our wedding anniversary. I haven't spent that many months worth of salary. I'd be surprised to see someone spend 2 or 3 months' salary at a steak restaurant. No matter how expensive, I doubt it would cost that much. Since he dislikes me, he can say such mean things and laugh about it. I looked down on him for being so rotten to the core. Yeah, well, it seems a bit out of your league, doesn't it? Also, your wife looks pretty poor. What's with that cheap outfit? Suddenly, he started belittling Sarah's clothes, and I got really angry. It's one thing to be sarcastic to me, but it's unforgivable to talk about her who has nothing to do with this. Sarah looked sad and then looked down. I caught a glimpse of her face turning red, as if she was embarrassed. That flimsy dress and obviously fake leather bag, so poverty-stricken. You can afford to buy anything better than that, Tom. You really are a loser. Hey, why would you say that? Don't talk about my wife. Even if you're a client's manager, I won't tolerate that. It's okay, let it be. Stop, please. Sarah, I don't like you being insulted. Let's just go home. We've had enough delicious food. I'm fine with this. Yeah, poor people should go home. After all, your wife has been eating only bread which comes with steak. Seems she liked it more than the steak. Poor people, just eat bread at home. We were stunned. Sarah started to cry, saddened by the whole situation. I thought about dragging David outside and yelling at him. But then a lady at a distant table said something. Well, you wouldn't understand a good thing about bread. What's that? You, sir, don't seem to understand the quality of this bread. Humph, I don't see anything good about this plain bread. It's just bread. Sir, you might want to stop there. Saying such things is not very appropriate. What are you talking about, chef? This is just regular bread, nothing special. Only poor people would appreciate this cheap stuff. I can't eat something so lowly. My taste is too refined. Well, you think that way, fine. This bread is actually a super high-end product, you know, right, Jennifer? Really? The wheat, we grow it on our farm. Have you heard of Westfield Farm? Westfield Farm, the famous one that produces high-end vegetables and fruits. Yes, I'm the owner. My husband and I run it. We grow a variety of vegetables and rice, and the wheat for this bread is also from our farm. It's top-grade bread from the Westfield brand. I see. You said your taste is refined, but you didn't recognize the quality of this bread. We aimed for a sophisticated taste. Yes, this is exclusive. High-end bread only supplied to top restaurants. David had been belittling the bread, but it turns out that the lady there was the one who produced it. Her name is Jennifer. Jennifer, along with her husband, manages Westfield Farm, a well-known establishment renowned for its vastness and its homemade condiments. Their condiments are quite pricey, popular among a certain circle of elite ladies. For someone like me, the prices were far beyond reach. And this bread was also a luxury item. Jennifer's bread, made with an original recipe, was unique and not available from other producers. It had a refined sweetness without being too sour, making it delicious. No wonder Sarah liked it so much. Although Sarah wasn't greedily eating only the bread, David had been mocking her. David, who may have never tasted this bread, was quick to assert that only poor people would be grateful for such a thing. But he must have been startled to find Jennifer, the creator, right there. David was sweating and seemed at a loss for words, clearly flustered. From my perspective, he looked quite embarrassed. I couldn't help but view him disdainfully as he awkwardly tried to find an excuse. Haha, is that so? My apologies. Well, I haven't eaten much bread before. Sorry about that. You don't owe me an apology. Perhaps you should apologize to these two. Me? Apologize to him? Yes, you have been saying some terrible things. It was quite unbearable to listen to. You should properly apologize. But I'm a manager at his client's company, and he's just a low-level employee. I don't want to apologize to someone who's just a high school graduate. I hate the bottom-tier people. Oh, you hate the bottom tier. So you hate someone like me who started from high school too. You look down on me. Well, that's not what I mean. No, it's different. I was just saying that about Tom. It didn't sound like that, did it, Jennifer? No, it didn't. You appeared to be looking down on all high school graduates. Just to let you know, my husband and I, who run Westfield Farm, are also high school graduates. No, that's not what Enough with the excuses. Can you please leave? You're ruining the enjoyment of our delicious foods, right, chef? Yes, that's right. We put our hearts into making foods for our customers to enjoy, but with someone like you here, it ruins the atmosphere. Please leave. Your presence is no longer welcome here. All right, I understand. I'm sorry. David apologized to the chef, Jennifer, and us before leaving. Although it was an unpleasant encounter with a mean person, having supporters like them made me feel relieved. People like David, behaving arrogantly, would surely be unwelcome in any high-class establishment. I figured he must have been condescending to the staff as well. Sarah was very grateful to the chef and Jennifer. Thank you so much for defending us. I was nervous coming to such a nice place for the first time, and these clothes and bag are just affordable items I bought with the money I earned from my part-time job. I was worried they might be inappropriate. Don't worry about that. You're well presented, and you haven't done anything wrong. Just be confident and proud of who you are. Exactly. What does it matter if something is inexpensive? It suits you well and looks clean. People aren't better just because they own expensive things. My husband and I earn decently as a couple, but I've never desired expensive brand items. It's enough that something fits well and looks good. Yeah, I guess feeling ashamed or sorry for myself is the real embarrassment. I'll try to be more confident. That's right. Confidence is important. You did nothing wrong, so be proud and come visit us again. We were happy to see you enjoying our bread. Thank you. It seemed that my wife was self-conscious about her attire looking inexpensive. The clothes and bag she wore were bought with her own earnings, but as a temp worker, her salary is modest. Seeing her friends, who are quite well off and own branded bags and shoes, she must have felt a bit envious. On the contrary, I felt even more guilty. If only my earnings were better, she could have had the option to be a stay-at-home wife and bought her plenty of beautiful clothes and bags. Due to our financial struggles and my low income, she has to work. But Sarah never complained about working. She's kind, considerate, and truly more than I deserve. We then paid our bill and left the restaurant, grateful for the unexpected support and feeling a bit better about ourselves. When that man was being mean, I wasn't sure how to react, but it's reassuring to know we have allies. I felt very reassured. Yeah, David always acts like that when he comes to our place, but I didn't want to see him either. Well, he got told off by the chef and Jennifer and scurried away. I'm really glad we could enjoy such delicious steak today. Thank you. It must have been expensive, right? Don't worry about it. I wanted to take you there. If it was delicious, then that's all that matters. Let's go again sometime. Yeah, let's do that. After that, I worked tirelessly at my job and gradually began to be recognized by my peers. I had always been at the bottom, but my boss finally acknowledged my hard work. I was thrilled that my efforts were being fairly evaluated. Sarah was overjoyed when she heard about my promotion. Congratulations on your promotion. I'm so glad your hard work paid off. Yeah, I'm glad there are people who recognize my efforts. If you work sincerely, it eventually pays off. That's true. I want to learn from you. I want to be your support. Sarah, you already are a great support to me. Thanks for everything. My pleasure. Oh, by the way, I've made a reservation for this Saturday. I wanted to celebrate your promotion. For my promotion, where? That steak restaurant. I wanted to go there again with you. Really? That's great. Then let's go this Saturday. Thank you so much. Sarah had reserved the same high-end steak restaurant for my promotion celebration. I was so moved I almost cried. How lucky I was to have such a thoughtful wife. Then came Saturday, and we decided to dress up a bit and go to the restaurant. Although we're not high earners, we chose affordable clothes that still look nice. When we entered, the chef and Jennifer were there. I thought Jennifer was there to dine again. Today, I heard it's a celebration, so please accept this as a gift from us. This is wine. Yes, we got high-quality wine. It's exquisite, so please try it. This is too generous. Such an expensive item as a service. We couldn't possibly accept. It's our pleasure. Consider it a small token of our appreciation. Lucky us. Let's gratefully accept his kind offer. All right, let's enjoy it. Delicious. It tastes sweet. I wanted you to try this exceptional quality. Enjoy it. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to have such delicious wine. Tom, make sure you thank your wife. She's the one you should be grateful to. Sarah, thank you so much. Today, we're celebrating thanks to you. Let's enjoy our meal. Such a lovely couple. To support each other like this is wonderful. Here, take this from our farm as well. Jennifer handed us a set of high-end condiments. The dressings alone were worth around $15 each. I usually opt for dressings that cost about $1.80, so I wondered what these high-end dressings would taste like. There was also a large package of premium fruits. Westfield Farm strawberries, packaged in wooden boxes, sold for about $200. These were high-end fruits that someone like me would never normally afford. These are the legendary Westfield strawberries. Can we really accept such wonderful gifts? Yes, please do. Think of it as a thank you for appreciating our bread. The strawberries look so beautiful and big. I've never seen anything like it. Westfield Farm is truly remarkable, with its extensive lands. I faced many challenges when I first got married. My husband and I worked tirelessly in the fields every day, but we supported each other and eventually built a large farm. So, you too should continue to support each other as well, no matter what. Stand by each other and move forward together. Yes, we will. Thank you so much. Jennifer seemed like a refined and graceful lady now, but she must have gone through a lot of struggles. She wasn't flaunting luxury brands but was well made up and her clothes were well cared for. Her shoes were polished too, showing she had a comfortable lifestyle. I aspired to be like her. No matter how tough things get, I want to be someone who supports my spouse and works hard for our dreams. With that in mind, I thought of collaborating with Sarah, enjoying our endeavors together. The steak that day was incredibly delicious. It was delicious the last time too, but maybe it tasted even better wrapped in the happy atmosphere. Watching Sarah happily eating steak also warmed my heart. A year passed. As a section chief now, I was working hard and came home with a bouquet of flowers for our wedding anniversary. It was Sarah's favorite pink bouquet. I suggested going to the steak restaurant again, but Sarah seemed hesitant. I wondered if she didn't want to go there anymore. "What's wrong? Didn't you like that place?" "We don't have to go if you don't want to." "Well, I do want to go, but we can't." I went to the doctor today and found out I'm pregnant. You know, pregnant women shouldn't have wine." "What? You're pregnant? That's incredible." "Well, Sarah, it's our baby." "Yes, our long-awaited baby. I'm so happy. I'll be a good mother. I'll do my utmost to be a great father. Let's keep working hard together." "Yes, we'll help each other out no matter what." Then Sarah decided to quit her job. And she gave birth to a boy. He was adorable with big eyes like Sarah's. Holding him, I felt like crying, overwhelmed by his preciousness. I was grateful every day for Sarah, who took care of our son. I did what I could, but as a stay-at-home mom, she did so much for us. As our son grew, Sarah began studying again. Sarah obtained her pharmacy technician certification and began working at a pharmacy. The nearby pharmacy offers flexible shifts, allowing her to finish work in time to pick up our son from his extracurricular activities. By that time, my earnings had increased significantly, and it would have been fine for Sarah to remain a full-time homemaker. But she had always been interested in pharmacy work and planned to study after childbirth. I was proud of my hard-working and ambitious wife. More than 20 years have passed since our son was born. I'm an old man now. Our son, Jason, graduated from university this spring and got a job. He's working for a major bank far from home and coming back for a holiday break. I believe our son, Jason, is very talented as he secured a position at a major megabank. I'm proud of him. Today, Sarah and I are being treated to steak by our son with his first salary. It's at that high-end steak restaurant. The chef, now in his mid-70s, was in his mid-50s when I first spoke to him. "Hey there, is this your son?" "Yes, this is my son, Jason." "Nice to meet you. I heard from my dad and mom that they really love this steak place. I thought I'd treat them." "What a great son you have. You must be proud of him." "Haha, he's excellent, unlike me." "Oh come on, Tom, you're great too. Aren't you a big shot now?" "Well, I'm just the vice president of a small company." "That's still impressive. Now, please enjoy your meal." We started with the appetizing salad and ordered soup, too. Every single piece was so delicious, it felt like our cheeks might fall off. Jason, who was eating steak from this place for the first time, was also moved. "Dad, this steak is really amazing. Wow, I've never had steak this tender before. I could eat loads of it. It's so good. It makes me glad to be alive." "Yeah, I love this steak too. I could eat it endlessly." "Thanks for making the reservation today. Being treated by you is like a dream come true. You've really grown up." "Well, I'm old enough, right? I've finally become a working adult, so I need to thank Mom and Dad, or it wouldn't feel right." "You've become so dependable. And this bread is absolutely delicious too. Where do they make it?" "Oh, that's from the Westfield Farm bread. You know, from that large farm." "Oh, the large farm along the highway. I didn't know they grew wheat there. That's new to me. By the way, is Jennifer doing well? What is she up to these days?" "Actually, she passed away recently from cancer. I was quite shocked when I found out. What? She passed away. That's so sad. Jennifer was battling cancer. I had no idea. What? Dad and Mom, you guys knew her? Well, sort of. She was a lady who was very kind to us. We didn't even get to say goodbye. It was a private funeral, and I only went to her grave. Jennifer was working hard at the farm till the end, thinking about it every day. She really loved the farm. We'll never forget the vegetables and fruits filled with Jennifer's love. She was truly dedicated to running the farm. Now her son has taken over and is running the farm with his father. This bread is made using a secret recipe passed down, so it's exactly like Jennifer's taste. Ah, Jennifer's bread. Don't cry too much. Let's eat with a smile to help Jennifer's spirit rest in peace. Yeah, you're right. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything. Our son has grown up well, and we can eat steak together as a family. We hadn't known about Jennifer's passing. We have been so busy, hardly visiting the steak restaurant, so we never bumped into her. Jennifer had been battling terminal breast cancer, but even after hospitalization and discharge, she kept working hard at the farm. It made me realize how deeply she cherished the crops she grew. I deeply respected her dedication and love for the crops she grew, putting her life into her work. After praying for Jennifer's soul, we enjoyed the steak. My son paid the bill smoothly when it was time, and seeing him grown up like this reassured me. It's impressive to see him handling such a large amount so effortlessly. When I was a new graduate starting at a company, I was so poor, even hesitating to buy meals at convenience stores, a stark contrast. Since then, we've been going to the steak restaurant for every special occasion. The chef had grown old, so his son took over. Originally, his son was a company employee, but he trained to become a steak chef. I want to keep working hard so I can continue to enjoy delicious steak. To show appreciation for all the hard times my wife has been through, I plan to take her there again for her next birthday.